The big dog doesn't come flying in looking for her, otherwise it's going to just be a mess tonight.
Hey, John,
Yes.
it's Sam. I somehow got made as a panelist here. Can somebody send me back to a spectator, please?
I think we can do that.
Thanks.
I just don't know how.
Oh, okay. Not a huge deal, but
If you click on Sam's name in the right side panelist list, right click and then say change role to attendee.
thanks.
Yep.
And is Julie, I'll just make her a panelist, and Suzanne.
What's funny is they're both showing up as panelists in. So, all right, you still got Sam still in as a panelist.
Let me just see. I can remove him, but I'm not sure if that's
No.
No.
Then he can't get back in.
Yeah, no.
no.
So if you hover over his name and click more, it should be change role to attendee.
No, I don't have.
Alan, I love your backgrounds. That's amazing.
Thank you. I live in Zoom all day long and I do this for clients. So I was doing it for clients. I'm like, I'll do it for myself. If you guys
Or
want,
not a big deal if you can't change me, Marika. That's fine.
Change role to attendee. Yeah, I got it. And then I will start the recording right now.
Okay. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, I'm getting feedback through something that's kind of weird. Try something. Okay. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order, suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitation on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the Economic Development Committee will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information, the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and/or the party for the right and/or requirement to attend this meeting can be found at the town's website at www.southborotown.com. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to watch or participate in the meeting may do so in the following manner: by finding the meeting at www.southborotown.com/remote meetings. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we're unable to do so, despite our best efforts, we'll post on Southborough's website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of the proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. Great. So I call the Thursday, February 25th, 2021 meeting to order at 7:35. First thing on the agenda, new recording clerk. Taylor Black, who had been doing our minutes up and had a contract up until January 31st, decided she's got a lot going on, didn't have the time to do the minutes anymore. So she did not renew her contract. Claire said that she would under the same terms. Last I saw, Vanessa was redoing the contract, I believe today, just waiting for it to be signed off on. And if everybody is okay with that, I'd like to make a motion to have Claire as our minute keeper. Say it's a 90-day contract, same that Miss Black had. So do I have a motion to have Ms. Reynolds as our minute taker and recording secretary?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Great. Okay. Moved by Ms. Conley and seconded by Alan. So I'm going to do a roll call vote as I see everybody on the screen. So Rob?
Yep, Rob Anderson, yes.
Alan?
Alan Belniak, yes.
Julie?
Yes.
Suzanne?
Yes.
And myself, aye. So it passes unanimously. I'll get that over as soon as we can. The wastewater feasibility study proposals to be sent to the Board of Selectmen awaiting contract. So apparently we had talked about it before, but I don't know if we took a formal vote on allowing Claire to proceed to the Board of Selectmen with her recommendation for the wastewater study. I believe it was under $10,000 anyway, so I don't know if we had to do that. Claire, do you want to elaborate a little bit on that for me, please?
Yes. So it is under $10,000, which per procurement does not require actually even a contract. I had worked with Lori as Mark's representative to get.
Sorry, Claire, I don't know if everyone else has, but I can't really hear her.
I'm having a
Correct.
difficult time,
Yeah.
but I'm deaf as a
Oh,
haddock, so.
Is that better?
Yeah,
What
that's
much?
better.
Much.
Okay.
Thank
All right.
you.
Okay. So sorry about that, guys. All right. So I had worked with Lori on this contract. This is the first phase of the wastewater feasibility study, which was always under $10,000. The two responses that came in were under $10,000, and everything is in place. I sent a message today, which I copied you, John,
Yep.
Julie, in terms of saying, is there anything else that has to be done? I haven't received any responses other than Lori was very, very good in getting back in terms of she and I had worked together on this, and I thought everything was in place. My question, there's an outstanding question in terms of whether this is needed, but
You know what? I'd rather do it and not need it than not do it. And so do you
there
want
you
to
go.
do me a
Okay.
favor and just refresh everybody's memory on who you're recommending? And
Okay, so in the selectmen's packet that was attached to the agenda for the February 16th meeting, I had provided per Lori's request a recommendation to provide Weston and Sampson as the ones to go forward with the less than $10,000 contract. This was based on, as my letter said, this was based on a recommendation from John Parent. He had worked with them specifically with wastewater, with the library, and was very, very happy. One of the questions that came up, just as some additional information, was regarding what did Karen Galligan think about it. I had already talked to Karen, who had said that they do not have a town engineer, and that still is the same. I talked to her subsequent to that, and she doesn't have any comment on it.
And at our last meeting, I asked you the same thing. You know, you vetted them. I know that you checked references and called around on them, and besides with Mr. Parent. So I'm okay with that. Does anybody have any follow-up questions? Like I said, we've had this at another meeting. I just don't think we formally voted. So does anybody have any questions, or does somebody want to make a motion to allow Ms. Reynolds to recommend to the Board of Selectmen?
I don't have a question, but I'm just not sure if I should abstain from voting because I wasn't part of any of the discussion, so it probably wouldn't make sense for me to vote.
That's fine.
Okay.
That's totally fine. So when I call you, just say abstain.
Yep. Okay.
Okay.
I just didn't know if that's going to mess up in terms of quorum. That's all.
No.
Okay.
But thank you. So I'm gonna go as I see it again. Rob,
Yes.
Julie,
Yes.
Suzanne. I think you muted Suzanne. Aye. Okay, Suzanne's aye. And Alan. Abstain. And myself, aye. So the motion carries 4 ayes and 1 abstaining. Great, moving right along. So that's it for me. So moving along, Julie, can you give us an update on the downtown, please?
I sure can. So a couple things. When was it? Tuesday? We had the forum. It seems like a long time ago. We had the forum that was joint session with the Board of Selectmen, and we did our presentation, and I don't know, I didn't get a look at who was there, but there were 35 people in the audience. So I know some of those were, us and a couple of people from planning, but there definitely were, a decent number of residents who weren't affiliated with the town government as well. So that was good. Most of the feedback was pretty good. A lot of the negative comments stemmed from, and we've heard this before, stormwater management downtown. That's already an issue for some of the residents that are abutting that area. So they're concerned that as, if we were to build more, then, that could further, take away ground area that would absorb some of the water and push it toward the streets and then, potentially into people's basements. There's so little space for actual new development. It's really only that corner of Main Street and Newton Street right now. But obviously all of these things are intertwined, and it is something that the Board of Selectmen is working on with DPW and the next step of the Main Street project. That's sort of the town funded portion of it versus the state funded portion of the road project. Some of that's going to be dealt with. That also intertwines with, you've probably heard people on the Board of Selectmen talking about the CSX, the train, their rights of way and everything. So that's all a little bit intertwined, but hopefully that's being dealt with. And it's tough because, I understand people's concerns and there's really not much we can do about it, except for, try to make sure it stays on Board of Selectmen's radar and, obviously be conscious of it. But again, I don't think that it would be I don't think there's much we can do there that would have too material of an impact more than what's already being done. So, but there was definitely some positive feedback. One other piece of feedback that we heard echoed again on Monday's planning board hearing had to do with the zoning map. And just as sort of a recap, when we had talked about zoning over the past couple of years, we had talked about doing, do we do an overlay district? Do we just, revise this whole district? And for lots of reasons that Judy Barrett made, she pushed us in the direction of just renaming the district. So, which is fine, but the boundary line of the district is a little bit wonky, and that it goes down Main Street, it goes down Boston Road, and then it sort of goes kind of not on a street. It kind of follows the right of way of the railroad, sort of behind La Esquama into some split lot areas that are just confusing to lots of people, I think, including me a little bit. So one of the comments was, why is that part of it? If we're redoing this, why are we not fixing the map so that people who have properties, landowners on La Esquama, don't have a portion of the back of their lot that's actually not developable because it doesn't have any frontage designated as part of the downtown village business district? So I think there's some sense to that. My one concern is, these are landowners, and I meant to check. I don't know if Marika, you had looked into this or not, but the gentleman who actually made the comment, I don't think he was on one of the split lots. So, I wouldn't want to do anything before speaking with the people who actually own those split lots, because I'm not going to force them to do something if they don't want to. I don't think it's a big concern if we didn't change it, because they're not developable anyway as commercial lots, to my understanding anyway. However, if we are going to go through the step of changing the map, which was something that had not been on our radar, but seems to be, that was fully supported by the planning board, I think it's a good idea to have it be a separate, and I haven't spoken with the Board of Selectmen about this yet, and maybe mentioned it at least, I don't remember, but I think it's a good idea to have it be a separate warrant article than the changes in use and the change in the bylaw that we're proposing, because my concern is that as we, one, maybe it gives us the opportunity to think about how to add other properties to the downtown area, which I think, could be beneficial. And there's some properties owners that would like to be part of that. But, I also think every time we make a change to the map, it's an opportunity for somebody to get upset and then to, maybe decrease our chances of having a successful bylaw.
I would even go one step further. Don't even talk about the map right now for the zoning change. for the split lots, they are already split between residential and commercial anyway right now. And anytime there's any type of development on a split lot, if it crosses that boundary, the more restrictive zoning follows. So you can't actually go onto a split lot and put up a business if it transitions even a little bit, and that includes parking, onto the residential side.
Gotcha.
So the map is, and issues around the map are not an issue right now. And it goes even further to your point, is that once we get that zoning in place, then there are going to be those residents who are nearby who see the potential benefit and want to add on. So as long as we get the zoning in place, perhaps even get that first project going and then tackle the map, because those are two separate things and they should not be intertwined. What we're doing right now is we're changing the existing zoning for sites that are already zoned for general business. So I would say we want to stick as far away from doing anything with the map right now as possible.
I agree with you. I think that's opening a can of worms that we don't want to deal with quite yet.
My concern is based on, I don't know if anybody heard the planning board hearing on
Yes.
Monday, which was interesting for a few reasons, but there was not a lot of public comment there. In fact, there, I believe, if I remember correctly, there was only one, and that had to do with the zoning map, and it prompted a pretty big discussion. And each member of the planning board said that they supported changing the zoning map. I completely agree that, not only should it be separate, but probably it should be tackled separately. But my concern, and maybe I'm being too gun shy here, but my concern is that certain members of planning board won't support the article going forward without making the changes. And again, maybe maybe support anyway. We don't really know. But
well, I think we're totally well within our rights to say, we should deal with the map. Let's get this zoning through first that addresses the parcels that already have that zoning. And we take that next step next year to address the map, because the two things I feel are somewhat separate, and it muddies the water about the benefits to the district, which already exists.
Can I ask you a question, Rob? How hard would it be to? I think there's 3 lots that have the split lots. To have that, to change the zone to the border, the property line, instead of through the line of it. Would that be a big deal? I'm just thinking, worst case scenario, these people, like, we have to change that, and we got a chance of it not going through. Is it that difficult to change a couple of lots to go along the property line instead of?
Well, it depends upon what the property owners want to do. I would expect most of the people who purchased those properties brought the properties when they're already split lots. They didn't.
And they were aware of them, yeah.
So they were unaware of it. If it is a split lot with the business in the back, theoretically, they could do a lot split and sell that commercially zoned property to the abutter and kind of make some money off the sale of the back of their property and keep their residential on the front side. They might want to consider that. That might be something they think years down the road. If they just want to become residential and remove that split, the article should be very easy to write. And, if that's what we want to do, fine. It just removes some future potential. That's the only thing. It's not hard to do.
Okay.
But we're not assuming that everyone would take that option, right?
Yeah.
yeah, that's right too.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, without
that's the-
speaking to anybody.
I'm sorry.
Oh, and
I missed that, John.
to answer the question, spots, that would not be an issue of spot zoning.
You should probably read. You should probably read the question out loud for
Yeah.
those
Oh, sure.
watching.
Yeah. I'd seen a chat thing,
From Mr. Litt.
not to venture into spot zoning. It would not be spot zoning, because you would not be changing the zoning for a specific project. It would be a zoning map change.
So just to be clear, so spot zoning would be someone coming and saying, I want to, build a business on this residential lot, and then going to apply for a zoning change for that
Yes.
particular purpose.
Yeah.
I'm
And that's
also,
not what this is. If residents are saying, hey, my lot split, I want it just to be all residential.
I'm also assuming that that's not going to be a project that we have to take on. I'm assuming that planning would want to handle a zoning area change as that, because that's their map. That's the same map that's been that district forever.
That's not the impression I got from planning.
Well, we'll have to talk to them at that meeting, because I know they're going to have
members are here, but what my takeaway from it was, EDC and Board of Selectmen to go talk about it and come back to us on the zoning map issue. We are having a meeting next week. Because just to backtrack a little bit, members of the planning board had some comments to the bylaw and some questions. So they had provided those, and Judy Barrett came. She was only able to attend for half an hour on Monday night, but she came to the meeting and went through several of the questions that they had and was able to answer them, but we didn't get through everything. And I think that sort of became the consensus during the planning board meeting on Monday. So we decided that representatives of EDC, BOS, and planning would meet next week with Judy to finish going through their questions. So after that was decided, the map issue came up. So, I think maybe that would be a good time at that meeting next week to figure out, to get on the same page with all the committees about who should be responsible. I agree that's not an EDC job. However, I do think EDC has some interest in maybe, I know there are a couple of properties, at least one or two properties that abut the downtown district that have in the past applied or tried to change their zoning to be within the boundaries of the downtown business village district and had not been successful. So if it may be an opportunity to incorporate, if we're taking the path which we hadn't originally been planning of revising a map, whether it's as part of the zoning bylaw or not, it might be an opportunity to think about including those properties, which could be for the benefit of those property owners. And so I think there are a couple of opportunities to look at things like that as well. However, I'm very hesitant to, open cans of worms. So, but I think there are some that are kind of no-brainers here. So while I don't think it's an EDC job, I do think, it's worthwhile that we have a say in it if we are going to be making changes.
Well, I would say that if the planning board is adamant and they say, nope, we need to have a map change, then we follow their lead. But if there is the opportunity to separate out the work that we're doing, which is the bylaw, from the map change, and leave the map change up to them with suggestions from us about which ones to add, yeah, we can do it. I just want to make sure that we're in the best position to get the bylaw through. And anytime you add in discussions about the map,
Yeah, I completely agree, Rob. I do. And that's why we didn't touch it in the first place, right?
Yeah.
Because we knew that could be a can of worms. And we, our intent from the beginning, the lessons learned from the ZAC, which was the thing that should not be talked about for so long, was that, keep it simple, keep it small, keep it targeted to what you actually need. So yeah, I totally agree with you. And I'll certainly take that message to our joint meeting with Judy next week. The one other point that's still the sort of one open issue that's still floating out there, and Marika did a really good job of putting this, if you had a chance to look at the slideshow from the forum last week or the material packet, was demonstrating how the FAR, the floor area ratio, works, and how it's like almost pointless. You have try to, you know, allow for 3 or potentially even 4 stories with a FAR that's 0.35 and by right, or 0.5 by special permit, because that's just not a feasible floor area ratio to work with. So I think that, you know, that is, while we're, you know, we're in a good place as far as sort of being on the same page across committees on the metrics of most of the performance standards that we set. That's one that I think we still need to talk about, at least raising this by special permit, or maybe getting rid of the concept of floor area ratio altogether. That might not be the proper measurement. In this case, a lot of towns don't use that. We might just want to say, okay, regardless of how many stories there are, you know, the building can't comprise more than 30% of the lot, or 35% of the lot, or 40% of the lot, whatever it is, to make sure that we allow for both parking and green space. But as long as it meets the height requirement, it doesn't go above the height requirement, then would it really care what the floor area ratio is? So that's sort of the one thing that I still want to change, that's important, I think.
Julie, has the meeting next week been shored up on a date or time?
I have to check my email. There were some emails on it. I don't know if it's been confirmed.
It was potentially Wednesday, right? Wednesday
Maybe.
afternoon.
That sounds right. I know they were looking at Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I think.
Please keep me in the loop. I definitely want to come, if
Okay.
that's okay.
So I think that's it for my update and the next steps. We're still, you know, trying to be on track for, you know, I think we are. I think we're making progress. My concern is that, you know, and I think we'll be able to get through the planning board's questions at this meeting. I don't see why we wouldn't. A lot of points of clarification, and I think Judy's a great person to answer a lot of those questions, because her experience is just incredible, and she's, you know, very well spoken about the issues, and she can give sort of an objective perspective with the experience to back it up. So I'm optimistic about the meeting with her and the planning board and board of selectmen next week. And planning board said that every meeting that they have until town meeting, they're going to open up a session for questions on the bylaw. So we should plan on making sure, you know, we have at least someone there to answer questions at each meeting. Going forward, I'll try to be at as many of them as I can.
Me as well. Does anybody have any questions for Julie?
I don't have a question, but I have a comment, because I tuned into the meeting as well, but just for the portion for EDC. And I thought Julie did a great job of being there to talk about the EDC's position. One thing I found interesting was I appreciate having Judy and her experience there to talk through these things. And we were literally sharing a Word document on screen with track changes and comments. And I think what might help us, and I'm just throwing it out there as an idea, again, I'm still the new guy here, is that it looks like there was even some questions asked in the comments. And then we were using that time at the planning board meeting to talk through those. And I think if we continue at that pace, it's going to take us quite a long time to finish stepping through that document. So what it might help us for our own board, our own selfish interests, selfish being EDC, not for us personally, is to maybe look at what the comments that Judy and others have maybe raised and try to anticipate and add in some responses into that, so we can try to speed through some of those.
Those are the questions that we're going to talk about on the not public meeting on Tuesday, because, or whenever next week that we schedule it, because those were, you know, this document's been out there for quite some time, and
okay.
And the planning board, you know, I know many members have looked at it, you know, but I think some people just were kind of really diving into it with a critical eye more recently. And so a few points of you know, and obviously, you know, they're going to be the ones who are administering this. They're going to be the ones who are enforcing this, like this is their purview. So they need to really understand it. So, you know,
okay.
So they had questions and they need to be answered. I agree. I don't, you know, I think it's better that we're going to take them offline, not because we don't want them shared with the public, but because this is sort of, the public hearing is supposed to be, here's the document, presented to the public and let the public have questions. It shouldn't be still debating the little pieces of the document. So I think you're right. And I think
Like facade.
Yeah, you're right. I just think there was, a good discussion, but I think, getting wrapped around the axle around specific intonations and what certain things mean could be facilitated faster in a separate environment. So, okay, great.
Agreed. Anybody else have any questions, comments? Since Mr. Litt and Mr. Stivers here, I'm just gonna ask for public comment now real quick on this while we're talking about, if that's okay with everybody on the committee. Everybody all right with that?
Yep.
Mr. Litt, Mr. Stivers, do you have any questions or comments? You want to raise your hand? I don't see any hands raised. So, okay. Moving on. Next on the agenda is economic development goals for community one spot for growth. Marika, do you want to lead off on what that is a little bit, and then we can get into it?
Yeah, sure. So I think at our last meeting, I went through the presentation and I distributed the presentation to everyone. Thank you, Alan, for your feedback. I did receive it and I noted it. So I'm not sure if I should go through it again, or I can pull up the presentation. Maybe we can just discuss our economic development goals and not go through the whole.
Yeah, I think that's fine.
Yeah, the portal thing. So why don't I do that?
I'll go last. I don't know what just happened. There it is. Thank you.
So, so this is the, I guess the.
So did anybody send in any ideas or comments, Marika?
Alan did, yeah, he had some priorities. But let me just go to. So these were the, I changed it a little bit, did I? Oh, I made it A, B, C, D, E instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But these were kind of I guess these would be like the longer term projects that we had spoken about, or that were kind of created, taking the master plan, etc. So I know, so we're currently, of course, we're working on the downtown initiative. Hopefully this zoning bylaw will go through, but will there be a second phase that we need to think about now and kind of come up with more details? Basically what we need is like specific projects that we would need grant money for. So that should be the discussion. What do we think is will be our focus for the next 2 years at least?
Now, are you talking about just the downtown area or the Route 9 and
all
everything
these
we already
things,
have in this things?
Yeah, all of these things. Like what do we want to focus on in the next 2 years? What do we need grant money for? Right? What are we going to apply for, if anything?
I'd like to. I'll start off with Route 9, if you guys don't mind. I think it would be great, a grant money for a consultant to look at all the zoning laws for Route 9 and its offshoots, to see if there's anything weird that we could change for smart growth or things like that. I think it would be great if we could get a traffic study done to see if we can have different Route 9 access for all the different things that we have listed here. That we've talked about in the past with different businesses on their struggles. So, I think most of what we need is consultant money to look along Route 9. Does anybody have any for the traffic patterns, to see if we could possibly even do a crossover at an access at Parkerville or things like that, if it's worth putting in a different satellite to change the traffic pattern? I know it's downhill there and that's a problem, but that's where a lot of the businesses are. So different things like that. Does anybody else have any thoughts or ideas?
Yeah, I think that's great, John. And I also actually love the idea of if you're thinking about a crossover, like I forget how or when this came up. I think I've heard Sam talk about it before, but I also remember like 10 years ago, there was, I don't know if a study was done, but there was an article in the Globe about putting in like a pedestrian walkway over Route 9 to make it, and I know they've actually done a fair amount of sidewalk route, work on Route 9 down by Oak Street and around there. Making it something that is more accessible between the business parks and potentially other businesses on that route would be interesting. I don't know. I know that's very broad, but it's something to maybe start to think about.
I don't know if any of you go to Natick very often, but so they've been working on the rail trail down there, and by Speen Street and Route 30, they built an unbelievable bridge.
Yes.
For the rail trail. And then I just was down it and saw it, the one that they put in over Route 9 for the same thing. It's just unbelievable. So if they could do that there's no reason we couldn't figure out a way to get one across Route 9. But I don't know what kind of money's out there. For these things, I would like to reach out to DPW, see if they have any thoughts, and maybe even the capital planning, to see if they have any thoughts on what they were looking for Route 9 and different things as well. If there's any projects coming up that we could tag team with them.
So John, so I think it's all great.
But we've only got another week and a half.
Oh, sorry.
And at some point in time, I'm going to have to recuse myself from any type of vote on this, because one of the organizations that is part of the One Stop is one I work for. But I have, in my role and my job, sat through multiple presentations on the One Stop, and there might be some hints that I could give to not only this group, but in the context of the town of Southborough as well. So what the state is looking for is expressions of interest to be submitted by April 2nd. Now, the application will just be one single expression of interest, and it'll come from the town. The EDC cannot in of itself apply. So there's just one application, one expression of interest. So the town has to identify its top 5. You do not actually pick which of the 10 programs on the One Stop that you go with. The state will analyze what you are looking to do and put you into a bucket. So what we need to think about is what some of those buckets might be, and try to find out if, for example, the project that we're bringing up can fit, and kind of craft that narrative after the expression of interest. So in thinking about the Route 9 corridor study, there is a new kind of grant from a DHCD called the Community Planning Grant Program. And it actually has a corridor study of a commercial area that runs through multiple towns and seeks land use alternatives to promote multimodal access, introduce mixed use, and achieve more compact commercial development. That is one of the grants on the One Stop. That sounds very similar to a Route 9 corridor study.
Yeah, it does.
And so because the state determines which bucket you go in, if we know that that is one of the things in the planning grant, we craft the narrative as part of the submission. The town can go for MassWorks. There are programs such as brownfields, site readiness, but you've got to identify those 5 as one group going in. And I'm not sure how other groups such as planning or DPW might not have their own ideas, but I think what we need to do is come up with a couple good ones, figure out how we're going to structure that narrative, and then kind of hope that whoever fills out the grant on the town's behalf tells the right story. I've heard from multiple people that the narrative is the most important thing. So if, for example, we want to talk about the vacancy along Route 9 and the fact that we want to get more businesses in there, that's part of the narrative that could potentially lead to grant receipt.
So, Rob, so isn't it, so I'm just trying to think what we should be preparing. And in other words, I guess the Board of Selectmen and Mark Purple would submit their letter of intent.
Yes.
Right? But we should provide them at least what we would like them to submit, and they can go to, ShopC or DPW and see what projects they have, and see how we can work together and combine those things. And
absolutely.
Yeah.
The one thing that and I've been telling this to all of the municipalities I've been speaking with, everyone seemed to think that you could submit multiple expressions of interest. It's just one. And a municipality can submit up to 5 projects underneath that expression of interest. So there's some selection that needs to happen from the select board and the town manager about which ones to include.
So would it be a good idea for us even, to at least give these 5, maybe create some narrative, right? Give some background, a little paragraph, provide that to the Board of Selectmen, and then they can kind of discuss among themselves and see what's the priority for the town. And apart from these economic development goals or projects, they would also look at the housing development and other infrastructure projects, right?
That sounds like a good thing to do. Yes.
Is it the Board of Selectmen in each town that submits the package to One Stop for Growth?
And it depends upon who's taking the lead. There's some communities where the planning department is doing it. I know of some others where it's the engineering department because there's a focus on infrastructure.
Okay. Do we know in Southborough, are we the ones who have the most interest, or are we ceding control to someone else to submit it? The reason I ask is there's probably other boards and committees and groups in town who probably have something they would want to put forward. Do we need to reach out to them? Do we reach out to Board of Selectmen for them to reach out? Because we've got 10 days left. So we need to do this the fastest way possible to figure out that we've canvassed the right people to still submit a narrative in time.
No, the expressions of interest are due through April 2nd.
Okay.
So we do have a little bit of time,
Okay.
but I to your point, the expressions of interest are due by April 2nd. They open up the applications on May 3rd, and they're due by June 4th. So It's a
Thank you.
yeah.
And
Okay.
Marika has already reached out to and emailed other committees and boards and told them about this as well over the last
Right.
few weeks. So
Well, no, I haven't. So I know Vanessa has sent around the information about this portal. And I know Claire has sent out a few emails to Board of Selectmen to make them aware of this new program. And that's why I think I haven't heard of any specific, projects that are being brought forward, but I'm guessing if anyone would know, it would be Mark Purple and Board of Selectmen. So I think we just need to be proactive because the time is kind of, we don't have
Yes.
that much time. And I think the earlier we submit it, the better. So that's why my suggestion was that if we at least identify our projects, then we can move forward and see who else wants to add. But I don't know, I'm not the one coordinating. I think the Board of Selectmen or Mark Purple will be coordinating the town-wide effort. I'm assuming.
yeah,
So.
I'm assuming too. Can you go back to the page with our goals on it, Marika?
Yeah.
Please. So does anybody have any, we can go through this list real quick on the downtown for phase 2. what we want to put in that for a narrative.
Yeah, what would be phase two? I guess if in a perfect world, we have design guidelines, we have a updated zoning bylaw, and we have a feasibility study done.
I think it just depends on. I think it depends on what the feasibility study says, right? Like, because they're going to make recommendations for wastewater management, and it'd be great to have some grant money to help implement that after the fact, but we just don't know what that is yet. So I don't know. That doesn't mean we can't include it, because obviously, hopefully they're going to recommend something that's feasible, but we just don't know exactly what that's going to look like yet. So yeah, I mean, and I think anything, I don't know whether I think it'd be nice to have some more guidance or infrastructure, because you're right. What's the next step? So zoning, I think of as the foundation. If we can get the zoning bylaw passed, that opens up the opportunity and encourages certain types of development in that area. Again, it's going to be very small. But how do we unify? I remember when we worked with the ULI, the Urban Land Institute, a couple of years ago, they talked about like wayfinding, and they talked about making a space, like making downtown air quote destination where people wanted to go. But how do you tie what's there and potentially what's coming together in a way that, obviously preserves the look and feel, make sure, the design guidelines should help make sure new stuff comes together. But, a lot of downtown districts have like some sort of, pool of money that they all put into for beautification or different projects and things like that. How do we take that next step? Obviously, these are owned by different owners and businesses and tenants that operate within the spaces. So, I don't know, Rob, do you have any thoughts on that?
I do, but that would be jumping down a rabbit hole of an initiative that mass development does, and I'm not sure if there's ever been any discussion about a DIF district in Southborough.
Not that I know. I know. I mean,
that wouldn't be part of this, so it might be off agenda. But I'm happy to give a presentation on that, because that might be something that is useful for us going forward.
Yeah. And also, as far as like, so say we get the zoning in place and say we have design guidelines and we're ready to go, is there another way, like, because say somebody, just as an example, somebody comes in and says, okay, I'm going to take that to Main Street, the corner of Main and Newton, and I'm going to build a building, and it's going to, have retail on the bottom, and it's going to have apartments on the top. How do we encourage, like, I know Marlborough, for example, and I'm not saying this is what Southborough should do, but Marlborough, for example, wanted another brewery, or is it Marlborough? Or yeah, Marlborough, they want another brewery. And so they actually put out an RFP, if I'm correct, to have people apply to come in and put in a brewery. How do you, like, obviously it's privately owned land, but how do you encourage certain uses? Is there a way to do that other than the by right stuff?
I guess we don't know.
So yeah, I'm just kind of trying to think of what's available and how if there's something that could be helpful in kind of taking that next leap. Connecting us with the right, whether it's a developer or a tenant or, that sort of fills those needs.
Thanks, Rob.
Yeah. Maybe what we could do is we just, for our narrative, we say, this is what we've been doing. We received a grant. This is the progress we've made. You know, once we're in the, you know, once these things are finalized, this is what we want to do next. You know, just give an idea for now. I mean,
Yeah.
Well,
I don't know.
are we completing narratives tonight, or are we voting on the ones that we want to put forward, or both?
What was that? I'm sorry, Alan, what was that?
I'm looking at the agenda. I didn't know we were actually going to try to craft narratives for each one. I didn't know if we were going to try to rank or vote, or actually rank, vote, and try to create narratives. I didn't know what is our task, I guess, right now.
Well, I guess what it says is that we would discuss our economic development goal projects,
Mm-hmm.
and then maybe vote to have this sent to Board of Selectmen for their review, so they can see what they want to include in their letter of intent.
Okay, because if that's the case, I'm supportive of that. I think trying to craft narratives is probably jumping the gun, because what if we craft a narrative for something that ultimately doesn't get put forward? Then it's a bit of a wasted effort.
Yeah. Do we also, to Alan's point as well, do we want to rank them? Because, you know, even though I'm not going to vote, I think the Route 9 Business Corridor District is a top priority, and might
Yeah.
even be higher up than the downtown initiative, because we don't have that zoning in place yet. And you can maybe get more bang for your buck from Route 9 than you can from the downtown. So I guess the question is, are we thinking about ranking these as well?
I actually thought that was the homework that we needed to do tonight. So I had some Marika my
Yeah.
rankings, and obviously we can discuss here too. So I think ranking and publicly discussing and figuring out what we as a board collectively think is probably a good idea.
Agreed.
All
So,
right. So
you know, if
No,
we're going to
sorry.
be ranking it, CD and everything on Route 9 and the last mile are my top things. You know, that's my 1, 2, and 3. It would be, I'd probably go with improving the traffic pattern last mile, because those are the biggest hurdles from all the businesses we've spoken to already. We've heard that from so many people. So that's
From a commercial impact, I agree with you, John. I would hate to see that all the work done for the downtown initiative. Like, we even had, and this is pre my time, but we even had a subcommittee for that, and it'd almost be a shame to see all that work that was put into that get bumped down to the bottom of the list. So I'm just throwing that out there. I wouldn't want that work to be for naught.
Yeah, but I'm not. To me, this is more for that one stop.
Okay, right.
On the ranking from
Mhm.
that's just my ranking. Is what's been nice is, so what we've been doing up to this point is Marika does everything, and then Julie and Marika and Rob have been dealing with a lot of the downtown stuff, all of it pretty much, and then Marika and myself and Chris, we've been dealing with the businesses on Route 9. So it's not like anything's getting thrown under the bus. They're just working in tandem.
Okay.
Different groups, and we pick each other's brains, because unfortunately we have so much. I think both sides are equally as important, because right now, you know, the downtown initiative is nearing completion on a bylaw, but we also have a 23% vacancy rate, and it's only going to grow at post-pandemic, and that scares me, because, you know, I've said this a lot. I don't think Southborough has as much a spending problem as a revenue problem. And if we can get more revenue in through the businesses on Route 9, I think that's an easier hill to climb. That's my soapbox that I've been on for years. So I welcome anybody else's comments on how they want to rank these moving forward. How would I'll put you on the spot now, because I'm used at it. How did you rank it, if you don't mind my asking, and what were your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm going back to the notes I sent. I think I had, I guess, gotta split my screen here. I think it was the update zoning for business villages was number 1, and then was the second one I had was the new business, the Route 9 business corridor, for underutilized properties, because I agree with you about just the opportunities for tax base, or opportunities for just any revenue at all. Just
Yeah.
and then the downtown initiative phase two. These are all like first, second, like they're all so tightly packed. And again, I have the least amount of knowledge here too, so it's tough for me. And the latter one was the improved traffic patterns on Route 9. And this was tough for me as a former transportation engineer to rank that one last, only because for me, I was trying to see like what could we do with existing infrastructure, right? So looking at the Route 9 business corridor district, wouldn't it involve a major transportation project, right? And not to say that any one of these is easier than the other, but talking about traffic patterns, I think one of the major things about talking traffic patterns is not the only thing, but one of them is looking at the Parkerville Route 9 access issues. And that with that is going to come a very high price tag. So I'm trying to look at what could we get money for and best apply that money. So.
Okay, appreciate it. How about you, Rob? I'm going to move down.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
no,
I don't mean to. Were you finished, Alan? I
Oh
apologize.
yeah,
Rob.
I'm done. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is, I'm thinking of it more of where we could potentially get the money. The updating of the zoning has taken an awful long time, but it is a top priority. But we've already kind of got that in play. It's going to be going to the Board of Selectmen. So we might not be thinking about going for more money using that as a lead, which is kind of why I thought the Route 9 Business Corridor District was the one. There could be a report that comes out of it that would be useful for us to potentially attract new tenants, potentially even hit upon the traffic patterns, because if you're creating that new business district and you have a consultant coming in, traffic and how people get to work could be an element of it. So it could actually address two of them at the same time. And so like if I had to rank them, Route 9, best bang for the buck. The opportunity to get money with that seems a little bit more than the update of the zoning, which is kind of why I'd probably do Route 9 Corridor Business District first, Downtown Initiative Phase 2 second, because hopefully by the time they award the money, it'll be September or December, and we can look into 2022 with some funds to do that. So that's kind of how I did it. And I unfortunately, in my own mind, combined create a new district, improve traffic patterns, and last mile, all as kind of Route 9. So I made that one. So I'd say CD and E were one, Downtown Initiative 2, and update the zoning, 2B.
I did the same as Rob. I kind of lumped CD and E together. And I think thinking through right now what's happening in the commercial market and where we're going to be coming out of this and how antiquated some of the zoning is on Route 9, I think we're at kind of a pivotal point for if we were able to get some funds to really look at that zoning and figure out what the best uses or possible uses are going to be going forward to give some flexibility for the owners on some of those properties to figure out what they might need to do depending on how the market shakes out. And I don't think anybody knows. And so I think a good look at it now will pay dividends later on. So I think I think Route 9 would be my top one for sure.
And you agree with Rob that CD and E is all kind of one?
Yeah, and for some reason in my head, I think I'm treating it all as one project, and I'm not sure, I don't know if that's the right way to approach it, but I feel like they're all very interconnected.
I think you can make a better narrative out of all three connected to get money.
Yeah,
Than if you do
I think
it
there's
as
a lot
piecemeal.
of, I think the traffic pattern again ties to last mile. There's just a lot of interconnected between all of those.
Okay. So, Julie?
Sure. Yeah. So I'm in agreement that I think our next big focus is Route 9, and I think those three things together do create a narrative. And I don't know if you saw Sam had put in the comments too when I had asked about when I mentioned the pedestrian bridge, that's actually something that's still on their project, and they're potentially looking for money, although it's not highly likely, from the Complete Streets project. Maybe Sam can talk a little more about that. I don't know much about that, but I think that if we can hit it from a few different angles, that really does start to weave together a narrative. And also, we've talked about mixed use on Route 9, updating zoning to permit mixed use, which could solve both our affordable housing problems and bring in amenities that it could be in commercial space along, to help divide up some of the office space, to the extent that we might need less office space. We already had some vacant office space on Route 9. So how can we repurpose those buildings for sort of this new post-pandemic chapter that solves a problem of one, of housing, two, building community, three, walkability for both the office tenants and to connect the town. Route 9 sort of divides the town. Things like the pedestrian bridge or, in better sidewalks, and allowing people to, on, the westbound side of Route 9 to get coffee at Starbucks across the street would be, those, I think that weaves together a beautiful narrative. Of course, also my heart is very much in the downtown initiative, and I agree that, we are going to need money for the next phase. And I think wastewater is certainly the next, the big thing, even if we don't know exactly what that looks like yet. As far as update zoning for business village districts, I would hold on that just temporarily, because my sort of long-term thoughts on that are, if we can get zoning passed for downtown, then we start to, and if we see that that's working and people are comfortable with that, then we start to look at Southville and other areas and, use that as the baseline. And it's a success story, if it is, which hopefully it will be, to do similar things in our other small villages. So I would probably put B on hold. And I do think C, D, and E kind of go together and are going to be sort of the next big thing that's going to hopefully be the focus over the next few years. But I also want to make sure that we see downtown all the way through and make sure we have the resources we need to implement the wastewater treatment after the feasibility study is done.
Because I think in the housing bill that went through, there's money allocated for land purchase for wastewater, if it's bonded and released. But that'll all go hand in hand. So so it sounds like everybody's pretty much in agreement.
It was really helpful to just see everything laid out like this too, because I think this is helpful in giving us some direction going forward.
Okay, so do we want to, work on a better narrative of how we want to present our ranking to the selectmen? How do we want to handle this moving forward now? Marika, any thoughts from you?
Well, I think I will combine, am I muted? No.
Nope.
Sorry. I think if I understand it correctly, we'll combine C, D, and E and say, address Route 9, create a business corridor. And so that's one. And then two would be, I guess, phase 2 of the downtown initiative. And we can just explain kind of what we already know, but it's not written down here, like what we aim to achieve. And then just present that to the Board of Selectmen, because I think, and once they make their choice, we can meet again and finalize the narrative. But at least then, we'll move forward. I mean, I don't know if that makes sense. That was my idea.
Yeah, it makes sense. I haven't read the article yet, but there was something in the Middlesex News, Metro West Daily today about free bus rides and a gas tax hike as part of a transportation bill that's going to be coming out. So I think the timing for last mile on that is all that kind of helps out a lot too. Towards, I know they've been pushing for more public transportation. So I know I'm jumping backwards here, going back to
and I
priorities.
think we need to really keep in mind, I mean, of course, we want to do a lot of things, and I think it doesn't mean we can't do other things if we
Right.
choose A or B. This is just to see what would make sense to ask grant money for, and what would be our, what would give us the biggest chance to actually get something done, right?
Yeah.
I think that's what we need to keep in mind. So.
I'm sorry. Somebody's going to speak and I interrupted. I apologize. No.
So should I just, I guess with the changes, was basically combining C, D, and E, and then number 2 would be Downtown Initiative Phase 2.
Yep.
Should we just send this to Board of Selectmen? Do you want to present it to them and say, please consider this for the grant application, for the letter of intent? Is that, how do we
Yes.
want to?
I think timing wise, you want to just send a letter to them with what we're looking for and ask them to consider it and then put in for the grant. Maybe there's other stuff they want, or do you think we need to try to get on their agenda and present it?
Do we know for sure if like there's a plan to submit this at a town level?
I don't know. I don't know at all.
Because I mean, I know that there's been like, notes sent around, but I wonder if this is on other boards' radars as much as it is on ours.
I can follow up with Mark and Vanessa tomorrow.
Well, I think they know that this portal has been launched, and they know that, I don't know, I think the only thing that went out is a kind of a general email saying, please have a look at this. But I don't know of anything or any department that's actively been putting things, on paper or proposing anything. But I think that's besides the point for us. I mean, we want South Road to apply because we want to have these projects done. And if they have received, interest from other departments, other projects, then they would be the ones who would have that information and they can see how to combine it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess my point is just that if it's not on their radar enough,
They are aware of the portal, that's for sure. They know about it.
The one thing that I've bumped into in multiple communities is sometimes people are making the assumption that the Economic Development Committee can put in its own expression of interest and the DPW can put in their own expression of interest. It's a single application with multiple things in it.
Mhm.
And if the town manager's office is not taking an active role to be that consolidator of projects, would we potentially lose a chance if we don't go with it? I just don't know who's going to be the person who submits.
Right. That was my point earlier. I think we want to play nice in the sandbox to make sure that we put in one concerted effort, but I don't want to wait, and then we miss an opportunity. So I think it's great that we let the Board of Selectmen know that we've got 2 great projects, our CD&E combined being one, and the other one saying we have a great thing for narratives here, and what's the next step? And then we just wait, and then and I'm not trying to sign our board up for our committee up for anything else, but if there's no action, we should volunteer to push it forward because we're the ones who are saying that we want some action on these things.
Absolutely.
So can we just maybe vote to give this to Mark Purple and basically bring it to the attention of Board of Selectmen, that the EDC would, is informed about the portal, and wants to apply for a grant or for grants on behalf, and so is submitting these projects in this priority.
Yeah, so does somebody want to make a motion as such to send the letter to the selectmen with the updated priorities with our interest?
I make a motion to send a letter to Mark Purple to inform the Board of Selectmen with our updated priorities to advance this as quickly and timely as possible.
Perfect, well said. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Duca. Okay, so I'm going to do it as I see it on here for a roll call vote. Suzanne?
Yes.
Oh, interesting. Rob?
Abstain.
Okay. Julie?
Yes.
Alan?
Yes.
And myself, aye. So that's 4 yeses and 1 abstain.
So we're just going to list out the priorities if we're not really going to provide the narrative, just to be clear.
As
Yeah.
of yet. Make sure there's interest in that, and then we can do the narrative after. So how long do we want to wait for follow-up from Mark or the selectmen? A week?
Well, I would request that he would that they would discuss it at their next meeting, and if that's, I don't know how much time they need before we send it to them. Their next meeting is next Tuesday. The thing is, it's yeah.
I don't know if they'll be able to have time to get it on their agenda for Tuesday.
They won't.
I don't know, because does that give them time to post it? Because for Tuesday, they'd have to have it in. Oh, today's only Thursday, so yeah.
Well,
Yeah, they would.
I could send it tomorrow, and which would be in time.
Yeah, if you don't, I hate to
No,
rush you, but if you
because
don't
I
mind,
think
that would be
it's
great.
crucial that because this is it. Like, we can't wait every 2 weeks every time we have something to
Right.
decide.
Yeah.
So then it's 16th of March, and then we have to get then time is kind of.
Sam said in the chat the Board of Selectmen agenda deadline was today.
Okay. Well, I can just
We still ask.
still submit it to Mark. I don't know if
Mhm.
Mark, yeah. I don't know. Okay. I don't know if they have it on their agenda. Well, I guess then we don't have a choice, but I'll send it anyway tomorrow, and then we'll see when they can put it on their agenda the soonest, then probably the 16th. And we'll just be ready with narratives either way.
Mhm.
So as soon as
Yeah.
they come back to us, we can provide that, and they can send it off. Which I don't think that's going to work before April 2nd, to be very honest. If we,
Is there, can we work in parallel? Like, we're asking the Board of Selectmen for what their take on it. Does that preclude us from going to other boards in town to say, hey, obviously you're aware of this because it is one portal. Are you considering anything? Like, I don't think it would hurt us to ask others to start doing some background research, right?
Yeah, and again, who's to say that they haven't already got some interest from other
Right.
boards, committees, and departments already that they're waiting on. So I think, Mark can at least give us the information to let us know whether interest is in there, and we can start working on narratives once we hear from Mark in a day or so. So at least I agree we should work in tandem, have everything ready, so just in case we can have it dropped in.
Now, before we get off this agenda item, have we kind of reached the end of that?
Yes.
Okay, because this still has to do with the one stop. And it was just something that Mass Development has a program called the Underutilized Properties Program that is part of the one stop. For that, private property owners can apply. And in particular, I was thinking about the CAS property. The reason being for this, and why a municipality can't identify the CAS property as one that they're going after money for, that would be the municipality itself picking a winner and loser of its commercial entities. That's why out of all of the 10 grants on the one stop, the Underutilized Property Program is the only one where private property owners can apply. The one thing that comes along with that is that the town has to write a letter of support in favor of their application. And this can be stuff for plans, architecture, and even construction. So one of the things that perhaps the committee can do is if there are underutilized properties, those private property owners can submit their own expressions of interest outside of the town's application.
So would that include like the Andrea restaurant and the building next to it, those type of buildings, Rob, as well as Kaz, or can it be any type of, because
They could.
you
But,
can't get much more underutilized than the Andrea.
Exactly. Yeah. So if that property owner, what you have to do is demonstrate in their narrative from the private property owner is the public good that's going to come out of it. So if the Kaz building is increasing the tax revenue to the town, they're thinking about changing it to mixed use and or housing that's going to have an affordability component. If that's part of their narrative that they're writing or what they want to pursue, that is the public benefit. So I just want to make sure that people knew that private property owners can apply for the one-stop for the underutilized property program. It's the only one that they can go for.
Should we advertise that somehow, like either on the blog or website, or push it out to the brokers, or is that one of those?
It's
When
one
you
of
went
those
in, that
things
scared
where
me.
the direct outreach, like if I would suppose if Claire or Marika knew the owner of the Kaz building, just say, hey, listen, take a look at this. The state has a program in place for underutilized properties. Take a look.
Yeah, I think that's a good approach, Rob.
Yeah. All right. So where are we now? We have no administrative business except for planning the next meeting. Are we through with that? Are we done with that discussion now? Marika, you muted.
Our next meeting would be, I guess we're alternating between morning and evening meetings. So that would be March, let's see, I wrote it down. March 12th, Friday at
Okay.
8:15 a.m.
All right. And Rob, I had asked to put an item on the agenda to discuss the diff. I forwarded it off to you, Marika.
Yeah.
So we can put that on. If anybody has anything else they want brought up on that, I think that's great. And hopefully by that time we'll. Some more thing. Anything else anybody wants put on that agenda for the 12th that they can think of now? And if you think of something, before then coming up, please shoot myself or Marika an email and let us know, because we gotta have more. We can't have reports on there anymore. We have to have more detailed agendas. So anything else? I guess any public comment, Claire or Sam or Mr. Litt? I don't see anybody's hands up. Do I? No. All right. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn. I think Julie did also, but she's muted.
Okay. Yeah.
Second.
Second by Julie. All right. Great. Thanks, everybody.
Finish your great homework now.
Gonna do it as I see it
Yes.
again. Suzanne,
Yes.
Rob,
Yes.
Julie,
Yep.
Alan,
Yes.
and myself. Yes. Thank you, everybody. Good night. I appreciate everything.
All right.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Bye, everyone.
Mike,
Bye,
I'll
guys.
call you tomorrow to follow up if you hear anything.
Sure. Thanks.
Thanks, guys.
All right, I'm done.